The knock came at 10:30 on a Wednesday night. I wasn't expecting anyone. I never did. I set down my beer, muted the TV, and walked to the door with that low-level irritation you get when your quiet evening gets interrupted. I opened it, and there she was. Emma. 5 years. 5 years since I'd seen her face in person, and now she was standing on my porch, soaked from the rain I hadn't even noticed starting, her hair stuck to her cheeks, her eyes red-rimmed and exhausted. "Hi," she said. Her voice cracked on that single syllable. I just stared. "I know we haven't talked in—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "I know I have no right to be here, but I didn't know where else to go. I should have asked questions. I should have asked why or how or what the hell was happening. But I didn't. I just stepped aside." She walked in, dripping rainwater onto the old hardwood floor, and stood there in my living room like she wasn't sure what to do next. I didn't know then that this would unravel everything I thought I'd made peace with. Let me start from the beginning. My name is David, and I'm an electrician. I know that's not the most exciting way to introduce myself, but it's the truth, and it's been the truth for the better part of a decade now. I work for myself, have ever since I turned 25 and realized I didn't want a boss telling me when to show up or how to do a job I already knew how to do. I live in a small town called Harrisville, about an hour north of anywhere that matters. Population, maybe 4,000 if you count the farmers on the outskirts. It's the kind of place where everyone knows your name but not necessarily your business, and that suits me just fine. The house I live in was my parents' house. They passed when I was 27. Dad from a heart attack, Mom from cancer about a year later. It's a small 2-bedroom with white siding that needs repainting and a porch that creaks in all the right places. The kitchen's outdated. The bathroom's cramped, but it's mine. Paid off. No mortgage, no landlord. Just me and the quiet. My days are simple. I wake up at 6, make coffee in the same machine I've had since college, and sit on the porch for 20 minutes while the sun comes up. I don't check my phone much during that time. I just drink my coffee and listen to the birds and let my brain wake up slow. By 7, I'm usually in the truck. 2011 Ford F-150, white, with toolboxes bolted into the bed. I keep it clean. People judge you by your truck in a town like this, and I learned early that showing up looking like you give a damn makes a difference. The work itself is straightforward. I do residential calls mostly. Rewiring old houses, installing ceiling fans, fixing breaker boxes that haven't been touched since the 90s. Sometimes I get commercial gigs, small stuff like updating the lighting at the high school or running new outlets at the diner on Main Street. I'm good at what I do. Not trying to brag, just stating a fact. I show up on time, I don't overcharge, and I clean up after myself. In a small town, that's enough to stay busy. But it's solitary work. Most days, I'm alone in someone's attic or crawl space, tracing wires, testing circuits, making sure everything's up to code. The clients are polite, offer me coffee, ask how I'm doing, but it's surface level. We talk about the weather, about their kids, about how the wiring in these old houses is a nightmare. Then I finish the job, they pay me, and I leave. I eat lunch in the truck most days. Gas station sandwich, maybe some chips. I park somewhere quiet, behind the library or out by the lake, and just sit there with the windows down, radio off, eating in silence. It's not sad. It's just routine. By 6 or 7 in the evening, I'm back home. I cook simple dinners, chicken and rice, pasta, sometimes a steak if I'm feeling ambitious. I eat at the kitchen table. Same chair every night, usually with the TV on in the background. News or a game if something's on. I'm not really watching. It's just noise. After dinner, I clean up, take a shower, then settle onto the couch with a beer. I'll watch whatever's on. Doesn't matter much. I'm usually asleep by 10:30. Weekends aren't much different. I'll do work around the house, fix a leaky faucet, mow the lawn, replace a rotted board on the porch. Sometimes I'll drive out to the hardware store just to walk the aisles, see if there's anything I need. I talk to Bill, the guy who runs the place. We talk about tools, about projects. It's comfortable. I don't date. I tried, a few years back. Signed up for one of those apps, went on a handful of dates with women from neighboring towns. They were nice enough. We'd meet at a bar, talk about our jobs, our families, but it never went anywhere. I could feel the gap between us, the sense that I wasn't quite what they were looking for, not ambitious enough, not interesting enough. After a while, I stopped trying. It wasn't worth the effort, the awkward small talk, the forced laughter, the inevitable fade out when they realized I wasn't going to be anything more than what I already was. I'm 32 now and I've made peace with it. This is my life, it's quiet, it's small, but it's mine and I don't owe anyone an explanation for it. I have a couple of buddies I see now and then, mostly guys I went to high school with who never left town. We'll grab beers on a Friday, play pool, talk about work or trucks or whatever game's on. It's fine. It's enough. But the truth is, most of the time, I'm alone, and I thought I was okay with that. I thought I'd gotten used to the quiet, to the space, to the absence of anyone else's voice in my house or my head. I thought I'd made my peace with the idea that some people just aren't built for partnership, that some lives are meant to be lived solo. I really thought I was fine. And then, 5 years after she told me I wasn't enough, Emma showed up at my door in the rain. Before I tell you what happened next, do me a favor. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from. I love hearing from you all, and honestly, it keeps me going knowing these stories reach people. If you're finding this worthwhile, hit that like button and subscribe. It really does help me keep bringing you these stories. Now let me tell you how I ended up here. Standing in my doorway, staring at a woman I thought I'd never see again. 5 years ago, Emma and I were friends. Good friends, actually. The kind where you don't have to fill every silence, where you can just exist in the same space and feel comfortable. We met through mutual friends right after college. She'd just moved back to the area to be closer to her family, while she figured out her next steps, and I was already working as an electrician, trying to build up my client base. We clicked immediately. Not romantically, not at first, just easily. We'd grab coffee, go to the dive bar on the edge of town, sit on my porch and talk about nothing and everything. She was smart, funny, ambitious in a way I wasn't. She talked about her plans, getting into marketing, moving to a bigger city eventually, building a career that mattered. I liked listening to her talk. She had this energy, this brightness, like she was always moving towards something. And somewhere along the way, I fell for her. I didn't mean to. It just happened. The way she laughed at my dumb jokes, the way she'd show up at my place unannounced with takeout, the way she looked at me when I explained how a circuit breaker worked like it was the most fascinating thing she'd ever heard. I thought maybe, she felt it too. So one night, about 6 months into our friendship, I told her. We were sitting on my porch, same as always. It was late summer, warm enough that we didn't need jackets. She was drinking cheap wine from a mug because I didn't own real glasses, and I was nursing a beer, trying to work up the nerve. Finally, I just said it. "Emma, I think I'm falling for you." She stopped mid-sip, set the mug down slowly, looked at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. Surprise, maybe. Or sadness. Or both. "David," she started, and I already knew where it was going. "You don't have to say anything," I said quickly. "I just needed you to know." But she did say something. "You're one of the best people I know," she said softly. "You're kind and you're steady, and honestly, you're probably too good for most people." I waited. "But I don't think we're looking for the same things," she continued. You're content here, and that's not a bad thing. But I need more. I need someone who wants to build something bigger, someone who's ambitious, someone who's going somewhere," I finished for her. She winced. "I didn't mean it like that." "Yes, you did." We sat there in silence for a long time. She tried to soften it, told me I was amazing, that any woman would be lucky to have me. But the message was clear. I wasn't enough. Not because I wasn't a good person, but because I wasn't striving. I wasn't chasing anything. I was just living my life, doing my work, and that wasn't the kind of life she wanted to be part of. She left that night. We hugged, awkward and stiff, and she said we'd stay friends. We didn't. I saw her a handful of times over the next few months, running into each other at the grocery store, at the gas station, polite nods, brief small talk, and then she moved. Got a job in the city, just like she'd planned. I heard through mutual friends that she was doing well, dating some guy who worked in finance, climbing the ladder. I was happy for her. I really was. But it hurt. Not in a sharp, angry way, just in a dull, persistent way, like a bruise that never quite healed. I stopped reaching out to people after that, stopped trying to build connections. It felt easier to just be alone than to risk that kind of rejection again. And for 5 years, that's exactly what I did. Until that Wednesday night. She stood in my living room, dripping water onto the floor, looking small in a way I'd never seen her look before. The confidence, the brightness, it was gone. She looked tired, worn down. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I shouldn't have just shown up like this." "It's fine," I said, even though I had no idea if it was. "I was driving through," she said. "I'm moving back to my parents' place, temporarily. I couldn't face going there tonight. Couldn't face my mom's questions, my dad's disappointment. I didn't ask what happened. Not yet." "You can stay here," I said. "The couch is yours." She looked at me like she didn't understand. "Why would you do that?" "Because you need a place to sleep," I said simply. "And I have one." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. She just nodded. "Thank you," she whispered. I grabbed a towel from the bathroom, handed it to her, then pulled some blankets and a pillow from the closet. She dried off as best she could, and I set up the couch while she stood there, quiet and uncertain. "Bathroom's down the hall if you need it," I said. "I'll be upstairs if you need anything." "David?" I turned. "I really am sorry," she said, "for everything." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. Then I went upstairs, closed the door, and lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell I'd just agreed to. The first morning was awkward. I came downstairs at 6 like I always did, forgetting for a split second that someone else was in the house. Then I saw her, curled up on the couch under the blanket, still asleep, her hair spilling over the pillow. I froze halfway down the stairs, suddenly aware of every sound I was making. The creak of the wood under my feet, my own breathing. I moved carefully into the kitchen, tried to make coffee as quietly as possible. The machine still hissed and gurgled like it always did, and I winced, glancing toward the living room, but she didn't stir. I poured myself a cup and stepped out onto the porch, closing the door softly behind me. The air was cool, damp from last night's rain. I sat in my usual chair and sipped my coffee, trying to make sense of what was happening. Emma was here, in my house, asleep on my couch. 5 years ago, I would have given anything for that. Now, I didn't know what I felt. I heard the door open behind me about 20 minutes later. She stepped out, wrapped in the blanket, her hair messy, her eyes still heavy with sleep. "Morning," she said quietly. "Morning." She hesitated, then sat down in the chair next to mine. For a few minutes, we just sat there in silence, watching the sun come up over the trees at the edge of the property. "I didn't mean to crash your morning routine," she said eventually. "You didn't. I can leave today," she said. I needed one night to clear my head." I looked at her. She was staring straight ahead, her jaw tight like she was bracing for me to agree. "You don't have to leave," I said. She turned to me, surprised. "Stay as long as you need," I said. "Seriously, the couch is there. You're not bothering me." She studied my face like she was trying to figure out if I meant it. "Why are you being so nice to me?" she asked softly. I shrugged. "Because you needed help, that's all." She looked away, blinking hard. "Thank you." I nodded and went back to my coffee. The first week was strange. We moved around each other carefully, like two people trying not to take up too much space in the same room. I'd leave for work in the morning, and she'd still be asleep. When I came home in the evening, she'd be on the couch with her laptop, working on something or scrolling through her phone. We'd exchange polite greetings, small talk about the day. Then I'd make dinner and she'd stay in the living room, and we'd eat separately. It felt formal, like we were strangers. But slowly things started to shift. On the 4th day, I came home to find the kitchen clean. Not just clean, organized. The dishes I'd left in the sink were washed and put away. The counters were wiped down. There was even a candle burning on the table, something floral that definitely wasn't mine. "I hope you don't mind," she said when she saw me notice. I was going crazy just sitting around. I needed to do something. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," she said, "but I wanted to." The next night, she cooked dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta with marinara and a salad. But it was warm and ready when I walked in the door, and I couldn't remember the last time someone had done that for me. "This is really good," I said, genuinely surprised. She smiled a little. "Don't sound so shocked. I can cook. I just haven't in a while." We ate together that night, at the table, and for the first time since she'd shown up, the silence between us didn't feel heavy. By the second week, we'd fallen into a rhythm. I'd wake up, make coffee, and she'd join me on the porch. We didn't talk much in the mornings. She wasn't a morning person, never had been. But the company was nice, comfortable. She started helping around the house more. Laundry, dishes, sweeping the floors. I told her she didn't need to, but she insisted. I'm not a freeloader, she said firmly. If I'm staying here, I'm contributing. One evening, she asked what I was working on the next day. Rewiring a garage, I said. Out on Route 9. Old place, probably hasn't been touched since the 80s. Can I come? I looked up from my plate. What? Can I come with you? She repeated. I'm bored out of my mind sitting here all day. I'd like to see what you do. I hesitated. It's not exciting, it's just work. I don't care, she said. I want to come. So the next morning, she climbed into the passenger seat of my truck, and we drove out to the job site together. She watched me work for the first hour, asking questions here and there. How do you know which wire goes where? What happens if you cross them? Why is everything covered in dust? I answered as best I could, amused by her curiosity. Then, when I needed someone to hold the flashlight while I worked in a tight corner, I handed it to her. Just keep it steady, I said. She did. And when I needed her to hand me tools, she did that too. By the end of the day, she was covered in dust and cobwebs, and she was grinning. That was actually kind of fun, she said as we drove home. I laughed. You have a weird definition of fun. I'm serious, she said. I haven't done anything real in so long. Everything I've been doing for the past 5 years has been abstract, emails and meetings and spreadsheets. This was tangible. You could see the result. I glanced at her. She was staring out the window, but there was something lighter in her expression. You can come again if you want, I said. She smiled. I'd like that. The third week, the conversations got deeper. We were sitting on the porch one night after dinner, the sky turning purple as the sun dipped below the horizon. She had a glass of wine. I'd picked up a bottle for her at the store, and I had my usual beer. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Do you ever regret it? Staying here? I thought about it. No. Really? Really, I said. I know it's not what most people would choose, but it works for me. I like the quiet. I like knowing my neighbors. I like doing work that matters, even if it's small. She nodded slowly. I used to think that was limiting. Like you were selling yourself short. I know. She winced. I'm sorry, that was shitty of me. It's fine, I said. You weren't wrong. I'm not ambitious. I don't want to build an empire or climb a ladder. I just want to do good work and live a simple life. That's not for everyone. It's looking pretty good to me right now, she said quietly. I glanced at her. What happened, Emma? She took a long sip of wine, then set the glass down. I burned out, she said simply. Completely. I was working 80-hour weeks trying to prove myself, trying to hit every goal, every metric. My boss was a nightmare. Nothing was ever good enough. And my boyfriend. She trailed off, her jaw tightening. He was just like my boss, she continued, always pushing me to do more, be more. I thought that's what I wanted. Someone driven, someone ambitious, but it just felt like I was constantly failing. You weren't failing, I said. I was, she said. I failed at keeping up. I failed at being the person they wanted me to be. And eventually, I just broke. She looked at me, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I quit my job, I ended the relationship, and I realized I had no idea who I was anymore. I'd spent 5 years trying to become someone I thought I was supposed to be, and I lost myself completely. I didn't know what to say, so I just reached over and squeezed her hand. She squeezed back. By the 4th week, something had shifted between us. It wasn't romantic, not yet, but there was a closeness that hadn't been there before. A trust. She started coming with me to jobs regularly. She'd help where she could, hand me tools, hold ladders, keep me company. Clients started asking who she was, and I'd introduce her as my friend. She never corrected me. We'd grab lunch together between jobs, gas station sandwiches eaten in the truck, parked by the lake. We'd talk about everything and nothing. She told me about her family, how her mom had always pushed her to be successful, how her dad had worked himself into an early retirement and regretted it. She told me about her ex, how he'd made her feel small every time she expressed doubt or exhaustion. I told her about my parents, about losing them, about how this house still felt like theirs sometimes. I told her about the years after she left, how I'd convinced myself I was better off alone. You're not, though, she said one day. Not what? Better off alone. I looked at her. She was staring straight ahead, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup. "You're one of those people who's built for companionship," she said. "You just convinced yourself you weren't because it hurt less." I didn't argue. She wasn't wrong. One Saturday, we spent the whole day working on the porch. Some of the boards were rotting, and I'd been putting off replacing them for months. She insisted on helping. We worked side by side, pulling up old boards, measuring and cutting new ones, hammering them into place. It was hot, sweaty work, and by the end of the day, we were both exhausted. We sat on the newly repaired porch, drinking cold beers, admiring our work. "This is nice," she said. "Yeah, I mean it," she said, turning to me. "This whole thing, being here, with you, it's the first time I've felt peaceful in years." I met her eyes. There was something raw in her expression, something vulnerable. "I'm glad," I said. She smiled, small and genuine. "Me too." That night, lying in bed, I realized something. I wasn't just tolerating her presence anymore. I was happy she was here, and that terrified me. The call came on a Tuesday morning. We were sitting on the porch drinking coffee like we did every morning now, when Emma's phone buzzed on the small table between us. She glanced at the screen, and I saw her entire body tense. "Mom," she muttered. She let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Then it stopped. 10 seconds later it started again. "You should probably answer that," I said quietly. She closed her eyes, took a breath, then picked up. "Hi, Mom." I couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but I could see Emma's face change. Her shoulders hunched, her jaw tightened. Her free hand gripped the armrest of her chair. I know, Mom, I'm fine. No, I'm not staying with friends. She paused. "I'm staying with someone. It doesn't matter who. Mom, please." Her mother's voice got louder. I could hear it now, sharp and insistent, even if I couldn't make out the words. "I'll come by this week," Emma said, her voice strained. "I promise." "Yes, okay, I have to go." She hung up and sat there, staring at her phone. "You okay?" I asked. "She wants to know where I am," Emma said flatly. "She's been calling every day for the past week. I've been avoiding her." "Why?" She laughed bitterly. "Because the second I tell her I'm back in town, she's going to start in on everything I did wrong. The job I quit, the relationship I ended, how I'm throwing my life away." "You're not throwing your life away." She looked at me, her eyes tired. Try telling her that. 2 days later, Emma drove to her parents' house. She'd been putting it off, but the calls kept coming, and eventually, she couldn't ignore them anymore. She asked if I wanted to come with her. I told her it was probably better if she went alone. She left around 10 in the morning. I went to work, tried to keep my mind on the job, but I kept checking my phone, waiting for a text. It came around 2. "Emma, this is hell. Me. Want me to come get you?" Emma. "No, I need to get through this." Emma. "But thank you." She didn't get back until almost 7 that night. I was in the kitchen making dinner when I heard the truck pull up. She came through the door looking like she'd been through a war. "How'd it go?" I asked. She dropped her bag on the floor and slumped into a chair. "About as well as expected." I set a plate in front of her. She stared at it for a moment, then picked up her fork. "My mom thinks I've lost my mind," she said. "She kept asking why I quit such a good job, why I left James, why I'm hiding out instead of getting back on my feet." My dad just sat there and nodded along like he always does. "What did you tell them?" "That I needed a break, that I was burned out, that I'm figuring things out." She stabbed at her food. "She didn't believe me. She thinks I'm running away." "Are you?" She looked up at me, and for a moment I thought she might be angry, but she just sighed. "Maybe," she said, "but I don't think that's a bad thing. Sometimes you need to run away from something before you can figure out where you actually want to be." I nodded. "That makes sense to me." And she gave me a small, tired smile. "Thanks." The following week, things got worse. Emma's mom started showing up unannounced. The first time, I was out on a job. Emma texted me mid-morning. "Your driveway is currently being occupied by my mother's car. Send help." By the time I got home that evening, her mom was gone, but Emma looked drained. "She stayed for 3 hours, Emma said. "Walked through the whole house, made comments about everything, the furniture, the kitchen, the fact that you don't have a dishwasher. Then she asked how long I was planning to play house with you." I frowned. "Play house." Her words, not mine. Emma rubbed her temples. "She thinks I'm using you as some kind of escape plan, that I'm going to get bored and leave." "Are you?" She looked at me sharply. "No, God, no. David, I'm not. She stopped, took a breath. I'm here because I want to be here. Because this is the first place I've felt safe in years. But she doesn't get that. She thinks I'm wasting my time. You're not, I said firmly. I know, she said quietly. But it's hard to believe that when she's standing in front of me telling me the opposite. The second time her mom showed up, I was home. I opened the door to find a woman in her early 60s, impeccably dressed, with Emma's eyes and a sharp, assessing expression. You must be David, she said. That's me. I'm Linda, Emma's mother. Nice to meet you. She didn't wait for an invitation. She just stepped past me into the house, looking around like she was conducting an inspection. Emma appeared from the kitchen, her face pale. Mom, I didn't know you were coming. Clearly, Linda said. She turned to me. May I speak with my daughter privately? Sure, I said. I'll be outside. I went out to the porch and sat down, but I could hear their voices through the open window. Linda's was sharp, cutting. Emma's was defensive, strained. This is not a life, Emma. This is stagnation. I'm not stagnating, I'm resting. You're hiding from responsibility, from your future. I'm trying to figure out what I actually want, Mom, for once. And you think you're going to find that here? With him? There was a pause. What's wrong with him? Emma asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Nothing's wrong with him. He seems perfectly nice. But Emma, he's an electrician in a town with 4,000 people. He's not going anywhere. And if you stay here, neither are you. Maybe I don't want to go anywhere. Don't be ridiculous. I'm not being ridiculous. Emma's voice cracked. I spent 5 years killing myself trying to be what you wanted and it destroyed me. I'm not doing that again. So instead you're going to what? Settle? Waste your potential on a man who doesn't even have ambition? I should have walked away. Should have gone to the truck, driven somewhere, given them space, but I didn't. I just sat there, frozen, listening to Linda dismantle me with surgical precision. David is a good person, Emma said, her voice shaking now. He's kind and steady, and he's never once made me feel like I have to be anything other than what I am. That's more than I can say for anyone else in my life. That's not enough, Emma. You need someone who challenges you, who pushes you to be better. I need someone who lets me breathe, Emma shot back. And that's what he does. There was a long silence. Then Linda's voice, cold and final. When you're ready to stop feeling sorry for yourself and rejoin the real world, let me know. The door opened. Linda stepped out onto the porch, glanced at me with barely concealed disdain, and walked to her car without another word. I sat there, staring at the driveway, long after her car disappeared down the road. Emma came out a few minutes later. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. I'm sorry, she said. You don't have anything to apologize for. She had no right to say those things about you. She wasn't wrong. Emma sat down next to me, her expression fierce. Yes, she was. David, you are not. I'm not ambitious, I interrupted. I'm not going anywhere. I'm exactly what she said I am. And that's fine, I've made peace with it. But she's right that it's not enough for most people. It's enough for me. I looked at her. She was staring at me with an intensity that made my chest ache. Is it? I asked quietly. Or is this just a stopover until you figure out what you really want? She didn't answer right away. And that hesitation, that tiny fractional pause, told me everything I needed to know. The texts started the next day, from James, her ex. Emma didn't tell me at first, but I noticed her checking her phone more often, her face tightening every time it buzzed. Finally, on the third day, she showed me. James, I heard you're back in town. James, we should talk. James, I know I screwed up, but I want to fix this. James, you were the best thing that ever happened to me. Please, just give me a chance to explain. There were more. A lot more. How long has this been going on? I asked. Since my mom found out where I was, Emma said. I think she told him. What do you want to do? Nothing, she said firmly. I don't want anything to do with him. But the messages kept coming, and I could see the toll they were taking on her. She was distracted, anxious, jumping every time her phone went off. One night she broke down. We were cleaning up after dinner when she just stopped, her hands gripping the edge of the counter, her head bowed. I can't do this, she whispered. Can't do what? This. All of it. My mom, James, everyone pulling me back toward a life I don't want. I feel like I'm suffocating. I put down the dish I was holding and turned to her. You don't have to go back, I said. You don't owe them anything. I know, she said, her voice breaking. But they're not going to stop. My mom's going to keep showing up. James is going to keep texting. And eventually they're going to wear me down, and I'm going to give in because that's what I always do. No, I said. You don't. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. How do you know? Because you're still here. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me, burying her face in my chest. I held her while she cried, and I realized, in that moment, that I wasn't just letting her stay anymore. I was fighting for her to stay. The breaking point came on a Friday afternoon. Emma had been quieter than usual all week, distracted. I'd catch her staring at her phone, her thumb hovering over the screen like she was composing a message she couldn't bring herself to send. I didn't push. I figured she'd talk when she was ready. That Friday, she told me she was meeting her mother for coffee. One last conversation, she said, to set boundaries, to make things clear. Do you want me to come? I asked. She shook her head. No, I need to do this on my own. She left around 2. I tried to work. There was a breaker box that needed replacing in the garage, but I couldn't focus. I kept checking the time, watching the minutes crawl by. 3 o'clock, 4, 5. At 6:30, my phone buzzed. Emma, can you pick me up? Me, where are you? Emma, coffee shop on Main. I don't want to drive right now. I was in the truck in under a minute. I found her sitting outside on a bench, her arms wrapped around herself even though it wasn't cold. She looked hollow, like something inside her had been scraped out. Hey, I said softly. She looked up and I saw that her eyes were red and swollen. Hey, I sat down next to her. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. How'd it go? I asked finally. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. About as well as you'd expect. She turned to look at me, and the exhaustion in her face made my chest tighten. She gave me an ultimatum, Emma said. Either I come home, get my life back on track, her words, or she's done supporting me. Financially, emotionally, all of it. What does that mean? It means she's cutting me off. No more help with my car insurance, my phone bill, any of it. She said if I'm going to act like a child, she's going to treat me like one. I felt anger flare in my chest. That's manipulative? Yeah, Emma rubbed her face. But it worked. For a minute, I actually considered it. Going back, apologizing, doing what she wanted. What stopped you? She looked at me and something in her expression shifted. You did. I blinked. Me? I thought about going back to that life, she said. The job, the pressure, the constant feeling of never being enough. And then I thought about the past month. About waking up on your porch with coffee. About working with you. Getting covered in dust and cobwebs and not caring. About sitting here at the end of the day and just existing. Without having to perform. Without having to prove anything. She paused, her voice thick with emotion. And I realized I don't want to go back. I don't want to be that person anymore. Emma, I'm not saying I have it all figured out, she continued. I don't know what I'm going to do for work, or how I'm going to pay my bills, or what the hell my future looks like. But I know I can't go back. I won't. I reached over and took her hand. She squeezed it hard. What did you tell her? I asked. I told her I'm done living my life for other people, Emma said. That I'm staying here, that I'm figuring things out on my own terms. And if that means she's done with me, then I guess she's done with me. Her voice broke on the last words, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I pulled her into my arms, and she collapsed against me, sobbing. I held her there on that bench, in front of the coffee shop on Main Street, not caring who saw. We drove home in silence. When we got back to the house, Emma went straight to the couch and curled up in the corner, staring at nothing. I made tea, something I'd learned she liked over the past few weeks, and brought it to her. Thanks, she whispered. I sat down on the other end of the couch, giving her space. David, she said after a while. Yeah? Why are you doing this? Doing what? Letting me stay. Putting up with all my baggage, my family drama, everything. I thought about it, really thought about it. Because you deserve a safe place to land, I said finally. And I have one. That's all. She turned to look at me, her eyes searching my face. That's not all, she said softly. I held her gaze. No, it's not. Then what is it? I took a breath. This was the moment where I could keep things safe, keep my distance, protect myself from getting hurt again. Or I could tell her the truth. Because I care about you, I said. Because seeing you hurt makes me hurt. Because this past month has been the least lonely I've felt in 5 years, and the idea of you leaving makes me realize how much I don't want to go back to the way things were. Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they looked different, softer. I'm not going to ask you to stay, I continued. I'm not going to try to convince you or make promises about what this could be, but if you want to stay, if you want to figure your life out from here, I'm not going anywhere. You're not a burden. You're not an inconvenience. You're just you. And that's enough. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she moved across the couch and kissed me. It wasn't dramatic or passionate. It was soft, tentative, like she was asking a question. I kissed her back, my hand coming up to cup her face, and in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. When we pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine. I'm scared, she whispered. Of what? Of messing this up, of hurting you, of not being strong enough to stand up to everyone who's going to tell me this is a mistake. You're stronger than you think. How do you know? Because you're still here, I said. After everything, your mom, James, all of it. You're still here. That takes strength. She closed her eyes and I felt a tear slide down her cheek onto my hand. I don't want to leave, she said. I want to stay with you. I want to build something here, something real. Then stay. It's not going to be easy. I know. People are going to judge us. My family's going to make it hell. I'm going to have to figure out how to support myself, how to… Emma. She stopped, looked at me. One day at a time, I said. We'll figure it out. Together. She nodded, fresh tears spilling over. Okay, she whispered. Together. That night, we stayed on the couch, wrapped up in each other, talking until well past midnight. She told me about the moment she realized she couldn't keep living for other people, about the panic attack she'd had in her office 3 months ago, locked in the bathroom, unable to breathe, about the night she'd broken up with James, and how he'd told her she was making the biggest mistake of her life. Maybe I was, she said, but it was my mistake to make. I told her about the years after she left, about how I'd convinced myself I didn't need anyone, how I'd built walls around myself so high I didn't even realize they were there until she showed up at my door. I thought I was fine, I said, but I wasn't. I was just waiting. For what? I don't know. Something. Someone. I looked at her. You. She smiled, soft and sad. I'm sorry it took me so long. You're here now. That's what matters. We fell asleep on the couch that night, tangled together, her head on my chest, my arm around her shoulders. And for the first time in 5 years, I didn't feel alone. 6 months later, I woke up to the smell of coffee. It was a Saturday morning in early spring, and sunlight was streaming through the bedroom window, our bedroom window now. Emma had moved upstairs about 2 months after that night on the couch, and neither of us had looked back. I found her on the porch, 2 mugs already waiting, wearing one of my old flannel shirts over her pajamas. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she was barefoot despite the cool morning air. Morning, I said, sliding into the chair next to her. Morning. She handed me my coffee, and we settled into our usual comfortable silence. The past 6 months hadn't been easy. Emma's mother had kept her word, cut her off completely. No financial support, no phone calls, nothing. It hurt Emma more than she wanted to admit, but she didn't waver. She'd made her choice, and she was sticking to it. James had eventually stopped texting after Emma blocked his number. We heard through mutual friends that he'd moved to Chicago for work. Emma didn't ask for details. Money had been tight at first. Emma picked up freelance work, remote marketing consulting for small businesses. Nothing like the high-pressure corporate job she'd left behind, but enough to contribute. She insisted on paying half the bills, even though I told her it wasn't necessary. I need to do this, she'd said. I need to know I can stand on my own 2 feet. So we figured it out. She worked from the kitchen table or the porch, and I kept taking jobs around town. Some weeks were better than others, but we made it work. She still came with me to job sites sometimes when she had the time, and the work wasn't too complicated. Clients had gotten used to seeing her, started asking for her by name. Mrs. Henderson, who lived on Oakwood Drive, had even started requesting that Emma be there when I came to fix things. "She's got better manners than you," Mrs. Henderson had told me once, and Emma had laughed so hard she'd nearly dropped my toolbox. We'd settled into routines, small, ordinary rituals that made the house feel like ours instead of just mine. Saturday mornings on the porch with coffee, Sunday evenings cooking dinner together, her chopping vegetables while I handled the stove. Tuesday nights watching whatever show we were binge-watching, her feet tucked under my leg on the couch. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't the kind of love story that made for good movies, but it was real, and it was ours. "What are you thinking about?" Emma asked, pulling me out of my thoughts. I glanced over at her. She was watching me with that soft expression she got sometimes, the one that still made my chest feel too tight. "Just this," I said. "Us." She smiled. "Good thoughts, I hope." "Always." She reached over and laced her fingers through mine. "I talked to my dad yesterday," she said quietly. I looked at her in surprise. "Yeah?" She nodded. "He called, said he wanted to check in, see how I was doing. And it was okay. He didn't apologize for Mom, but he didn't defend her either. He just asked if I was happy." "What did you tell him?" "The truth." She squeezed my hand. "That I am. Happier than I've been in a long time." "What did he say?" "He said that's all that matters." Her voice was thick with emotion. "And that he misses me." "Are you going to see him?" "Maybe, eventually, when I'm ready." She took a sip of her coffee. "But I'm not in a hurry. I'm not going to let anyone rush me back into something I'm not prepared for." I nodded. "That makes sense." We sat there for a while longer, watching the sun climb higher in the sky, listening to the birds wake up in the trees. "I was thinking," Emma said eventually, "about that breaker box you've been putting off replacing, the one in the garage." I groaned. "Don't remind me. What if we tackled it today, together?" I looked at her. "You want to spend your Saturday replacing a breaker box?" She shrugged, grinning. "I can't think of anything I'd rather do." I laughed. "You're insane." "Probably." She stood up, pulling me with her. "Come on, let's get to work." We spent the day in the garage, covered in dust and frustration, as we wrestled with ancient wiring and rusted bolts. Emma held the flashlight, handed me tools, made jokes when I cursed at stubborn screws. By mid-afternoon, we were both sweaty and exhausted, but the job was done. "We did it," Emma said, stepping back to admire our work. "We did it," I agreed. She turned to me, her face smudged with dirt, her eyes bright. "This is nice. Replacing a breaker box? No." She laughed. "This, us, doing things together, building something." I pulled her close, not caring that we were both filthy. "Yeah, it is." She wrapped her arms around my waist and rested her head against my chest. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For giving me a place to land, for not trying to change me, for just letting me be." "You don't have to thank me for that." "Yes, I do." She looked up at me. "Because most people don't. Most people want to fix you or mold you or push you to be something you're not. But you never did that. You just let me figure it out. That's what you deserved." She smiled, and I saw tears shining in her eyes. "I love you. You know that, right?" We'd said it before, a few weeks after that night on the couch, whispered in the dark like a secret. But hearing it now, in the middle of the day, in the garage we'd just spent hours working in, felt different, felt solid. "I know," I said. "I love you too." She kissed me, soft and slow, and I felt that same sense of rightness I'd felt the first time. This was where I was supposed to be. That evening we cleaned up and made dinner together. Grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, nothing fancy. We ate on the porch as the sun set, the sky turning shades of orange and pink. "I've been thinking," Emma said as she pushed food around her plate. "About what?" "About the future, about what comes next." I set down my fork. "Okay. I'm not talking about big grand plans," she said quickly. "I'm not trying to map out the next 10 years or anything. I just mean I want to keep building this with you. Whatever that looks like. I want that too." "Good." She smiled. "Because I'm not going anywhere. Neither am I." She reached across the table and took my hand. "You know what's funny?" she said. "What?" 5 years ago, I told you that you weren't ambitious enough, that you weren't going anywhere." She shook her head. "I was so wrong. I'm still not going anywhere," I pointed out. "I know, but that's not what I mean." She looked at me, her eyes serious. You built something here, David. A life, a good life, and I was too blind to see it. I thought ambition meant climbing ladders and chasing titles. But real ambition is building something that lasts, something that matters. She paused, her voice soft. You did that, and now I get to be part of it. That's more than I ever thought I'd have. I didn't know what to say, so I just held her hand and let the words settle over us. Later that night we lay in bed, the window open to let in the cool breeze. Emma was curled against my side, her head on my chest, her breathing slow and steady. David, she murmured, half asleep. Yeah? I'm really glad I knocked on your door that night. I smiled in the dark, my hand moving in slow circles on her back. Me too. She sighed contentedly and drifted off. I stayed awake a little longer, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how much had changed in 6 months, how the house didn't feel empty anymore, how I didn't feel empty anymore. I thought about the life we were building, small and simple and unspectacular by most people's standards, but it was ours, and that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.